Okay, creating a presentation in a math classroom. That's what we're working on right now. First of all, tables are a great way to show your audience what you're talking about. But for this example, as you can see, this table has too much information on it. We actually developed this table in an earlier class. When we took paper airplanes and threw them across the room, we measured a few different things. We measured the time that it took to build, the plane length, the width, the color, the time in the air, and so on. As you can see at the top, we have a bunch of things there. We need to minimize that clutter. And because this is just a poor example, because there are so many numbers, there's so many different things that I should look at. I don't even really know where to begin. This would be a better example. This is a decent example. We have just two of the items, and these are two of the items that I would like to speak on: build time and time in the air. If I'm talking about a correlation between these two things, I can look at just those two columns. I don't have to look at everything else on my table. Now I've got it all pretty clear as to what I'm looking at. Now I only have this one as a decent example. I don't have it as a great example because the next slide here, see if we can see a difference here. On the great example, as you can see, the build time is going up in ascending order, starting at 62 to 63 to 72 and so on. That's way better because now I can just know that the orange column here is going up in ascending order, and then I can look at the time in the air to see if that's also going up in ascending order. And if they both are, then there must be some correlation. But as I look, I can see, well, time in the air really isn't increasing as build time increases. And we can talk about ordering all of this stuff once we get into the Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're creating your presentation. Now, whereas the previous one, this is the decent example again, I would kind of have to order these in my head to kind of get an idea of what's happening. If you do this for the audience, if you order it for them, they're going to gain a lot more from your presentation. Let's talk about graphs. I don't really think I even need to talk about this one because this is such a poor example. We've got all 7 items on our graph, and I do not even want to start looking at it because there's so much information there. We have seconds and inches as our different units as well. We're not even all in the same unit. So a better example, a decent example, would look like this. Obviously, there's a lot less clutter. If you sat down, you could actually look at this and kind of figure some things out. I have an even better example here, and I think the bar graph doesn't work as well. This is the decent example again, because if you look at the bottom, you can see all of these numbers are not in order. And that's because it's a bar graph. You can't really do that. So you actually have to kind of look at what graph you want to use. This one is going to be a better example. Again, this is time in the air and build time, the same two we were looking at with the tables. And as you can see, again, we don't have any correlation there. It's just a bunch of points located everywhere. If there were correlation, you'd have some type of line or curve that you could see. But we've already discovered that it doesn't have correlation. Text. We do not want one big paragraph, one big bullet point paragraph that you just sit up and read when you're at the board. That really doesn't engage your audience. A decent example is to use bullet points like this, a bunch of them. Now, this one, there still is a lot of writing on the board. If you want to do a really great job, you're going to keep your bullet points to a minimum or a maximum of 3 or 4. And then you can put little information down in between those bullet points, but 3 main ideas is a lot better than a big paragraph. So the 3 main ideas here do a really good job. Lastly, we want to pick important information. These are just a few general rules here. Pick important information. You only need to expand on important ideas. Usually these ideas are what caught your attention the most, right? Also, verbalize your extra thoughts. So instead of doing that big paragraph, you can do your bullet point and then verbalize those extra thoughts that you would have written in your paragraph. Practice your presentation beforehand. That's always a great thing to do because then you know what extra pieces you want to put in there that maybe you didn't write down because it could have been too cluttered. An image can also liven up your text.